Hi folks, Nathan here. Time for another Take 10. Quick 10-minute foray into making some art for myself. Unfortunately, like most days, this is the first time I've been able to draw anything today. Fortunately, I'm going to be doing something hopefully a little more constructive than usual. Instead of my general pandering around and drawing what I'm used to drawing, I'm going to do some inspired by master study type stuff. What we have here is a picture of, it's a convention sketch of the Hulk versus Daredevil by Lee Weeks. And since I enjoy Mr. Weeks' take on the Hulk so much, I'm going to be doing some studies of the way he does the Hulk. Not a straight copy, and certainly not a copy of the entire thing. So I'm just sort of like, I don't really have the energy right now to try really hard to copy something directly. So I'm just going to be doing sort of inspired by things. Like I'm going to take the shape of the head here, the way I would do it normally, and then compare it to what he's doing, see what I'm doing differently or wrong, or what parts I like better in his version, which are most of the things. And that hopefully is how I will learn to do better stuff. I know a lot of beginning artists often think they feel a little weird about this kind of thing, and especially when I was a kid, copying was considered a really big problem. You couldn't possibly be an artist if you were copying people. But what I've learned from being grown up and going to art school is that you can't possibly be an artist if you don't copy people. There is no reason, there's no physical way for you to learn everything about art on your own in the amount of time you'll have to be alive. So the only way to get good enough is to steal as much as possible from everyone else around you who's learned already. When I say steal, you're not actually taking anything from them. I'm certainly not stealing Mr. Weeks' style here. I'm not going to be stealing his thunder. He's way more accomplished than me, and probably always will be. But I can emulate the things I like about his style. And once I do it enough times, without being slavishly devoted to it, it'll be part of my style, which is something to look forward to. What I've been finding out lately when I try to do so-called serious drawing is that my primary problem is structural. I have a lot of trouble getting realistic structure down. I'm wishing I had an eraser, but no erasers on this pencil. Like most of the pencils available here in Australia, for some reason, the traditional way to use a pencil here is to have a pencil in one hand and one of those block erasers in the other. Even in school, it just seems weird to me. I grew up in the States, and you wore out a lot of erasers. Maybe we just made a lot. I probably just made too many mistakes. But hey, can't learn if you don't mess up. You only learn so much from other people not messing up. You have to start messing up on your own. For instance, this ear that I had on here, way too high. The head's tilted forward. You know, like phone again. Ignoring messages. Eye line, nose line, mouth line. It's tilted forward. It looks like he's huge. Anyway, so I had the ear way up here, when really it would be rotated forward in space to about where that is. I had it way up there, like past the hairline, because I misinterpreted the way Weeks is doing the angle of the head. It's not an easy pose he's got here, but it does convey effectively the character of the Hulk, screaming, angry. He does some great stuff with the hair here, the highlights and shading. It's very comic booky. I dig that. A little harder to pull off a pencil. I don't often draw in a comic book style. You've probably noticed. Mine's more of like a badly skilled illustrator style. That whole thing where you see the pencil drawing like a Jim Lee or something and it looks like a paint by number. Or if he shaded it in instead of just putting the X's, it looks like a fully rendered ink drawing done in graphite. I don't generally do that. It's bad practice, but I tend to refine and redraw at every stage of the comic making process. My thumbnails to my pencils, there's more drawing between, and then I leave enough of the drawing to be done in the inks that I still have creative work to do. That might not be the best policy. A lot of artists tend to get the pencils as tight as they can so that they can sort of relax during the inking and not think about it, which is probably a really good idea. But I like to keep adding touches to it. I think inks do something on the page that pencils don't do, and vice versa for thumbnails and pencils, but it's just, I like to keep the process going, probably because I don't want to let it go, and I'm afraid of getting to the point where I'm not allowed to fix anything anymore. There's only so much time. You have to sort of let some of that stuff go. A lot of it, actually. Kind of making this part up, changing the pose around just to kind of fiddle around with it. Anyway, the point here was to copy that kind of expression on the face. So that's cool. Let's see what I can do with duplicating his hand here that he's done. Just practicing on the angles. So my paper's not even straight, so it's laying on top of something. But I don't care. See, judging from this, being a convention sketch, a wash thing, I'm sure he used reference to speed up things, but he may have just even looked at his own hand as a fist and exaggerated it. I gave a talk on using reference in comic book art for the Sydney Comics Guild a little while back, and sort of we went over how we all use reference to things, and a lot of people use it the way I use it. Or maybe I use it the way they do because I found out from them. But a lot of my comic book hero people, you draw whatever it is you're trying to draw, and then you go get some reference so you can fix all the mistakes you made drawing it from memory. Some people do the opposite. They collect their photographs or reference stuff and then refer to it continuously. Wow, that hand is misshapen. What have I done? Like I've lost the structure of his hand. Anyway, they gather the reference. They get the reference the way they want it to be, and they not trace it necessarily, but they duplicate it very closely, which I would never do. I like it the other way. I like the reference to be in the details. Like I might do a pose reference, but it would never. My picture would never look exactly like the reference pose. Partially because I love having the freedom of, like I said, adjusting things on the fly, but mostly because I find that stuff that's done straight from photos looks a little bit stiff. No matter how action-packed the photo is, there's only so much reality you can convey when it comes to comic book style action. I mean, yeah, you can make it look like people really can fly in a photograph, but it doesn't look as good as someone, doing something that can't be photographed. This reminds me of the good old days. I used to fill up page after page of just hands, and just feet, just studies basically. I didn't know there were studies at the time, but I think I had How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, and mentioned how to do that, or maybe I had Jim Byrne's book, just early comic stuff. I wasn't even interested in drawing comics. I just wanted to draw. I wanted to be able to draw superheroes, and that's comics people were the best at it, so I tried to learn from them. I need to study anatomy enough so that this is effortless, and when I want to distort it, I don't have to freaking pretend like I know what I'm doing. I think I'm running into here with this hand and with trying to copy things is that I've been off book as far as anatomy studies and things for so long. I graduated a long time ago from art school, and even then there wasn't a whole lot of what I would call useful technique taught. I learned a lot of different techniques. I learned a lot of printmaking techniques that I will never use again because they're too expensive. Unless I ever, I have to really go into. I'm not buying myself a lithography press. I'm not going to do any etching anytime soon. Probably. I know how, and I appreciate that, but I would much rather have taken like a dozen anatomy courses than the 2 lithography classes I took. But that just wasn't available. That wasn't the kind of thing you learned in the art program. They taught you some of the tools, taught you some techniques. There was a lot more like appreciation and history in there than I expected for studio classes, but that's good too. It's important. I can't wait till the day when stuff like Mr. Weeks here is in the art program. I keep getting messages and I keep ignoring them because time is short. Speaking of time being short, that's pretty much my 10 minutes. I'm going to do a quick one here, just without looking at anything. Try to see how far I've gotten. Another technique you learn with reference is you look at something intently, you study it, you draw it, and then you get away from it completely. You don't look at it anymore. You go off somewhere else, and you draw it again. And see how well you can, not necessarily recreate it, but at least capture some of it. God, I really need to learn how to draw. I always liked the Expressionists when I was a kid, because it looked like I could understand what they were thinking when they drew or painted. This is when postmodernism was getting big, and everybody was all about concept art, and I just thought, I look at Munch, and I can tell exactly what he was feeling. Depression. So, hey, 20 or 30 more years of careful studies of anatomy, maybe I can draw a real character. Anyway, my time for today is up. Thanks guys for watching. I'll keep it going. I'm still going to keep doing this every day. My plan was to go for a month. We'll see how far it goes. I'm only on day 6 now. I think this is day 6. So I will keep going. Hopefully you'll keep watching. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, feel free to leave me a message here at YouTube, or you can reach me on any of my social media outlets. I'm all over the place. Anyway, keep making stuff, and I'll see you next time.